To the future. You mean the past? Exactly.
Hey everyone, Heba here from Collective Rising. Thanks for joining me. New podcast, and the title today is Indigo Children. So I'd like to dedicate this whole podcast, talk about types of indigos, characteristics and features of indigos, different DNA templates that they carry. I'd like to talk about also what the life path of an indigo is and what they could suffer from, being, from a completely different frequency, and deep dive into abilities, the deception that would happen to an indigo when they're not awake, and the life path of an indigo. So a lot of information packed into one podcast. I've done my best to bring you concise information, straight to the point, that doesn't go round and round in circles, and over years of observation, personal experience and learning, I have this combination of the work that I've put together, which I hope you'll find helpful and beneficial for you and other people you may know who identify as indigos. This will shed light on the types of souls incarnate currently on Earth, and the distinction is not to give labels, but it's just to understand our templating better, because there is a big difference in the templating itself. So this is all stuff that I'm going to delve deep into. So let's begin. First thing that I want to say is indigo children are not just children. They could be adults as well, and they are predominantly children who are being born here right now from, say, the last 20, 25 years. Indigos have been coming here from the 50s or maybe the 60s, but they have been coming for a long time. So there's different waves, and each of these indigos you'll find have different characteristics that they display. For example, the older generations of indigos weren't as, let's just say, out there as the younger generations of indigos. Because they were the first or the earlier waves that have come here, they tend to be a little bit more seclusive and introverted, maybe shy away from the crowds and do their own thing quietly, sort of not making a big scene out of things. Whereas an indigo younger generation, once they know their soul purpose, they're out there on the front line trying to make the world a better world. Their push is a little more intense, and they're coming prepared for the mission, as opposed to the older indigos where their first mission was to come and anchor the grids and bring that solid foundation in preparation for the successive indigo waves that are to follow. All indigos share the same characteristics, fall under the same umbrella basically. The indigos are actually eternal ascended masters, and their collective name is rainbow makers, which, the name says it all, rainbow makers. They bridge worlds. That's how I see indigos. Indigos bridge worlds. There are 3 types of indigos, 1, 2, and 3. Now the 3 is different to the 1 and 2 because they carry 2 different templating within them, and I'll discuss that a little bit later on. But 1, 2, and 3 are known as the keepers of the blue flame. They are the Magis. They carry within them security seals, able to run the D12 frequency freely, as opposed to other hybrid races that aren't able to do that. Now, worth mentioning here that each individual has a specific energy signature and has an incarnation path. So that's why it's important not to compare our path with other people, because we all have our unique energy signature and our own incarnational path. And that determines the details of your awakening, when you're going to wake up, and how and when, circumstances around it, and things like that. Indigos and starseed are the first that come in to awaken other people. But to awaken other people, it is necessary for them to be initiated into a Kundalini activation themselves during their ascension cycle. They have to go through that Kundalini initiation. And once they wake up to that and activate, then they are the stewards for other people to begin their awakening journey. In essence, each person has a unique ascension path, but we all have the same inner context of an electromagnetic process of that biospiritual transformation that takes place. So when we transform and when we activate, we all go through the same process. But indigos are, you can say, ahead of the crowd, because they've been there longer, they've done it, they've been through they've done the hard yards, and they're, mastered that ability. And they have a greater capacity to hold higher frequencies, and that's what distinguishes their templating from others. How does that expansion occur? That expansion of their consciousness actually occurs through a series of progressive initiations. Accretes, it builds up and builds up and builds up. So it's a series of electromagnetic frequencies which culminate into a Kundalini activation. And that has to happen first. Of course, there's higher than the Kundalini. Kundalini is only dimension 9, up to dimension 9. But we seek to attain the highest and go into the Kundalini and the Kirashe. So what happened in January 1st, 2000, because of the stellar activation cycle, that's also when we received those D12 frequencies. So we were beamed by the D12 frequencies and its subharmonics, of course, because each dimension has 12 subharmonics. And yes, so the indigos were here and were still coming in between 2000 2017. As they were being born, they had potential to fully integrate the D12 frequencies at birth, which is something not heard of for a very, very, very long time. From the last ascension cycle was the last time we got those frequencies, and the last ascension cycle had occurred, and that's the last time we had the access to the D12 frequency. So it's come back now because of the new ascension cycle, the stellar activation cycle. Stellar is connected to Stargate. In the open, they carry a huge amount of activations and codes. And if we are matching in our DNA, matching those codes, we can actually go through the Stargate and end up in another dimension. So it's an ascension pathway. Well, you can say it's a fast way to accelerate your evolution. So it's a very important time right now we're living because of this stellar activation cycle that we're in. Now, when that Kundalini activation occurs and activates, what happens is neurons and neurological structures and networks start to form, allowing the person to absorb new frequencies and new activations through their auric body. So we receive that DNA frequencies through the upper thigh receivers, so they're like the antennas, which are like a bundle of nerves for the transmission, so for the integration of those DNA codes and intelligence transmissions into the light body. So they come through the light body, and then they are manifest through the physical body. Now, what happens if, say, you accept the codes in the light body, but the physical body is not able to integrate them? Then we might end up with some physical symptoms, and a lot of people experience DNA activation symptoms, ranging anywhere from like light, mild to severe. You know, some people have cracked bones and stuff, and that's severe. But the light symptoms that most of us experience can be things like visionary changes, headaches, back pain. That these energies that have been accepted by the light body but not yet to be accepted by the physical body are stored in a central place in the spirit body, in the light body. And when the physical body is ready to integrate them, then they will be taken and integrated. So nothing will be rejected. Everything will be existing. Everything's existing in potentiation. So it's all there until we are ready to take it. We're never disconnected if we so choose. We're always connected. And we take on as much as we're able to. That's why it's important, if you want to evolve, ascend really quickly, that you remove blocks that you have in your physical body. So start working on detoxing and cleaning your body out from parasites and toxins and things like that, reducing exposure to radiation from microwaves and 5G and all that, and also other things like keeping your emotional, mental body healthy and not overworking, ample resting, meditation. Anyway, so a lot of people also, as a result of activations, become very sensitive to surroundings, and indigo is especially extra sensitive because of that disparity in their frequency. They come from a high frequency themselves. They land here in a very diluted form of, or a more, I should say, gross form of energy. And what happens is they just cannot deal with that difference in frequency. So they end up with, like, they're born usually with a lot of sensitivities, hypersensitivities, allergies, physical issues, you know, things like that. They're just you know, and it's unexplainable. Like, most of the time, the, you know, parents that take their indigo children to doctors, doctors would say, oh, they're just born like that. You know, that's sort of, you know, a lot of autistic and ADHD kids are also carrying the indigo template, and that's also explained in one of Ashiana Dean's sessions. That's what happens. Now, when you have that sensitivity to your surroundings, you actually have a beautiful gift to detect authenticity, able to detect false light and imposters and dark agents who actually, they're here purposely to misguide you and to dark flower you, so they can, you know, they're taking your DNA so they can better themselves and evolve while leaving you undone, like that manipulative way of using your genetics without your knowledge. And Indigo's mission is mainly for Christos realignment, so to bring back the D12 frequency to Earth, and to prepare the planet for ascension starfire by holding the light through the grids until those activations spark. So we're going to go into a Urtha, which is Earth, Urtha, but the higher Earth. So Urtha starfire ascension cycle will begin 2047. For those who haven't had a chance to integrate the codex or the stargates, then if they choose, opt for the Urtha starfire, which begins in 2047 and culminates in 2230. Indigos now are the first manifestation of that eternal field. They did not come from apes and monkeys. They did not evolve that way from elementals. They actually carry the templating of the eternal, and they're direct manifestations of the eternal, expressed in a form of like an eternal standing wave of sound vibration, inaudible sound vibration, primal sound field. Different tribes all carry different genetics, and each individual person as well carries the different templating themselves. So it's an individual thing, but also a collective thing connected to particular races. Fallen races that don't have the whole access to the D12 frequency, they're fallen angelics, fallen consciousness, and they are like, example, the black sun and the ruby and Bilal sun. I'll break it down a little more. So the black sun race have D2 to D10, which is dimension 2 to dimension 10. So they have access to the Kundalini energy, but they can't go above the Kundalini. They can never activate their Kundarai or Kirashe. So they can't access the Christos or the light and sound fields. That would be the Draconians, ETs, and the dark races. They belong into that category. Now we have the ruby and the Belial sun DNA, which is 9 to 11 strands of DNA. They're the fallen ETs, but they're more of the avatars, the black magicians, the agents of the dark that orchestrate things and plan out perfectly orchestrated agendas that play out really, really well, but they're dark. So they cause harm, loosh on other energies because that's the only way for them to survive. They're disconnected from D12, which means they're disconnected from eternal life. So that's the 9 to 12, and they're all the fallen ETs and the avatars of the dark. The diamond sun DNA, which hold the whole 12 strands of DNA. And this is humanity. So humans carry that D12 DNA. And that's their original DNA template before humanity fell and landed in the lower density levels. Next, we have the double diamond sun. So they are the 24 to 30 strand DNA matrix. So they don't have they have the 12 plus another 12, double that. They're the indigos, the healers, and the geneticists. Okay. We go into the 40A DNA strand, that's called the emerald sun. And they're the grid workers and the architects who have access to all 12 stargates. They carry the 48 strand DNA matrix, so 12 times 4. That's called the emerald sun, hence the name Emerald Order. I will discuss the different types of indigos now. 3 types of indigos, as Ashayana Dean explains in the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order teachings and the Freedom teachings, and Keylontic science. So this topic's discussed in all these teachings. I want to point out something here, that the type 1 and type 2 are different templating to the type 3, and their purpose is different. Type 3s have a dominant Orophim. So they have the Orophim, and they're co-sharing that fallen Anu Elohim, Pleiadian, Nibiruan, Nephilim soul that has entered into a human incarnation in order to bioregenerate for the 12 DNA strand template. Because the Anunnaki genome is missing that 12 DNA strand, this soul has agreed to take on a Nephilim or a fallen Anu Elohim, Pleiadian, Nibiruan Nephilim soul in order to help it regenerate its template. So they're the lower frequency than the indigos 1 and 2, 2 being more of the teachers and healers, and the ones are the walk-ins or the grid workers. Now, I do want to explain a little bit more about the type 3s because I think that's the most common type of indigos. What I've noticed of the type 3 is they they need, because of the two templates that are like at war with each other, right? So it's like there's an inside war all the time. They are people who are extremely sensitive, who always need peace around them. They can't be in chaotic places. Now, of course, 1 and 2, the same thing, but 3s are even more. Like, they're the ones that would get up and walk out when things get too much and you never hear from them again, because they're so sensitive. There's only so much tolerance to chaos and to disorder. So they need support. They need a lot of support. They need to feel safe. As Oriphims and Nephilims, so Orifim is the positive and Nephilims the negative, then bringing the two together, it's like an internal battle that's happening all the time in their minds, in their DNA template. And it's one against the other. Sometimes Orifim wins, sometimes the Nephilim drives a person mental at the end of the day. You know, they need to be always in a balanced state, and they need to wake up to who they are. They need to observe these happenings. So they're the people that really need a lot of assistance to heal. You know, they might come across as like a bit narcissistic or very narcissistic, or like completely emotionally disconnected, but once they do wake up their template, they heal very, very quickly, go back into their Orif DNA template, and you know, they begin activating really, really fast, and they lead others into that healing journey as well. There are many indicators that, just to give you an idea, many indicators that a Nephilim is taking over an Orifim within the Indigo 3, because you'll start to see things like panic attacks, disbalanced emotional reactions, and aggressive behavior, maniac behavior even. What else? I'm just trying to think. Yeah, bipolar issues, schizophrenia, mental illnesses and things like that. That's what they tend to suffer from. And these are the types of people that the pharmaceuticals and the drug companies are really after to block their DNA template. And parents of an indigo child need to be very, very aware that if your child exhibits signs of being bipolarized, so from being well-behaved to being completely ill-behaved, and doing that often, then, and they're very sensitive and different, they consider themselves misfits, high intelligence, remarkable intelligence, then you need to look at whether they could possibly be indigo 3s, and drug treatment is not the answer for them, because what that does, it suppresses, instead of helps them activate, it suppresses their DNA template, priming them to accept the Nephilim in charge rather than the Orifim, which is going to advance them. So we're actually destroying their DNA strands and allowing the Nephilim to take charge and win over the whole template, which is really sad, because they come here in order to help other beings and not to destroy themselves. But they took the chance, knowing that this could be potentially a threat to them and a risk, and they still took the risk. So they're brave, courageous, intelligent, beautiful beings who need help, who need support, who need to be understood. And they're more common than we think. They're more common than we think. So, you know, let's just keep an eye out for them and provide support as much as possible. I'd like to talk a little bit about the abilities of indigos. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about where they come from. So like I said before, they are direct manifestation of the eternal consciousness. First was the word, because of the inaudible sound vibration. So they first manifested into the primal sound fields, vibration, and that became an encryption. So it's got its own encryption, special energetic signature. Now, sound is first, and it's the highest manifestation of eternal field. And it's the feminine aspect of creation, or the feminine principle. sound, and it's the magnetic, then comes the electrical, which is the light force. So indigos hold that highest frequency from sound to light, and the combination of the two then manifest here on the lower dimensions and in between. Indigos hold that frequency and encryption of source creator due to the many spiritual initiations and integrations and capacity to hold that higher frequency within their template. Many are blue-skinned star seeds who have attained full consciousness and live within the ekatic levels of non-polarized consciousness. So there's sound and light, and they're in fact called the Ascended Masters, or the Rainbow Collectives. You know, what I said at the start of this session is their other name is Rainbow Makers. Such a beautiful name and very appropriate. Now, their abilities, now to deep dive into that, they have 12-dimensional energies minimum. They go all the way to 48. That's for the emerald template. They tend to be energy healers, but natural energy healers. So they would touch another person and heal from one touch. They're high-level empaths. And here I'd like to distinguish, because there's dark empaths and there are compassionate empaths. They're the compassionate empaths. The ones who get super sensitive when you tell them a story about, you know, or seen this dog, or seen this animal, or seen this child, or, you know, this person who, you know, was suffering from pain and disease of some sort, and then they start flowing with tears. They have that empathy. They're able to feel other people, but also have a genuine care, and they often reach out to help other people, and they often find themselves in a dilemma because they want to help. They can't say no until they form healthy boundaries, of course, and they start healing, but they often go out of their way to help everyone around them, and they're often taken advantage of. So they're high-level empaths, and they're wisdom counselors. So from a very young age, people will be drawn to them to tell them their stories and ask what they think about their decisions and things like that. And yeah, people look at them as wisdom oracles almost. They're embodiment of spiritual wisdom, and also they master lie detectors. They can detect lies, they can feel betrayal, they can feel when people have done wrong by them, and they get very, very hurt because they come here with that little bit, that level of naivety or innocence, if you like. It's not naivety, it's more like an innocence. You know, they love, they trust, and they get hurt, and they expect others to do the same thing, but when others don't do the same thing, and that energy is not reciprocated, that hurts them a lot. And they learn that way, though. They learn from their experiences, but they learn the hard way. And they have a high level of spiritual maturity and integrity. They often don't fake something just to make it. No, they have integrity, they have pride, they inspire and motivate other people. And many a times they are actually born in a leading position. They start to lead people to themselves, to activate from within. They lead them inside of themselves rather than outside. They're relentless in truth seeking. Many of the truthers out there are indigos. A lot of them don't even know it, and they just go for it, and they're relentless. They give up for a little while. They get sick of it when people don't actually respond. You know, they get very frustrated if people don't understand them. When they do, it motivates them, gives them momentum, and then they're at it again. And yeah, that just builds and builds and builds because they're here for a big purpose. They're not going to settle, be happy, and just, you know, have a little place and then just sit inside and be introverted all their lives. That may be the beginning, but towards the mid their midlife and the latter part of their lives, they're out there, they're doing things. They love sharing truth and they embody the truth fully. They don't have, often they don't have to, they're not two-faced. So what you see is what you get, basically. They defend the Omni truth, which is the one truth, because they live by the law of one. They live in service. They live in unity consciousness. For this, they are targeted by the dark avatars at a young age so that they can, so their abilities can be capsized. And they do that through mind and body control. The main two abilities that indigos are known for is ability to detect false light and very high levels of empathy and sensitivity. And that makes them targets because dark avatars perceive indigos as a threat to the world, and it circumvents their efforts to dominate the stargates. So that's basically why they're targeted. False light also purposely misguides an indigo soul mission. Some examples are the trickster agendas to captivate the indigo spirit through love light rituals and practices like moon worship and frequencies that reverse the DNA template. Bringing them into the net and capturing them there, into the black cube matrix as well. Gender reversal agendas, the victimizer. A lot of those agendas, especially for the twin flames, the hero scammers agenda as well, that's been playing out lately, especially to capture the indigo twin flames as well that are here for a big mission, because that's going to circumvent their success in gaining dominion over Templar stargates, so the Earth stargates. They, of course, it's noteworthy to mention drugs and pharmaceuticals, but I think all of you would know that. That's one of their obvious attempts to give, things into the body that I can't name here. There's also hijackings by ETs and fake alien invasions and deceptive agendas like that in order to hijack the indigo's mind and prevent their awakening, things like that. So they put them into like a coma state or a state of like induced memory wiping where they just can hardly remember anything. And of course not to mention food, the additives, the chemical soups that indigos especially targeted with to destroy the anatomical body. If the anatomical body is in a poor shape, then easier target to host that body and take a hold of it. Dreamscape is a big one, so dreams at night are also induced. Sometimes they're put into the consciousness. If the indigo's field is open and they haven't done enough energy hygiene and protection, it keeps the aura open, and that's in itself is the way to penetrate into the auric field, the morphogenetic field and the auric field, and then the physical, the anatomical body, and place those visions and dreams into the mind of an indigo. Well, it's recently happened to me where I was tagged by a dark avatar. I was told that she was my best friend and she loves me and she expected me to give affection back. And I must have woken up in the dream saying no, because I felt there was this huge resistance, and I started like sweating and getting really like an anxiety feel, and I woke up. And then I had to do a lot of energetic protection and cleansing in order to get that energy out of me, and it didn't happen after that. But it must have been one of those vulnerable moments where I let my shield down and that happened. So there's something called also astral tagging. Astral tagging is when you travel at night and tagged astrally. So then the negative controlling entities are usually roaming in the astral in a disembodied form, awaiting an entity, awaiting an indigo soul to tag them so that they can take their bodies. And yeah, they, indigos have the higher codex that they don't have, so they await an opportunity in order to come into the body, tag along an indigo in that body so they can both be hosted in the same body or fully possess the person. A little harder, but yeah, you can, be two souls in one body, and they wait for that opportunity without your approval, without your consent, so that's something you need to be careful of. Always perform protection, spiritual hygiene before sleep. Even just set an intention takes less than a minute, and it doesn't have to be outspoken words. It could be just a thought, or doing the D12 Maharic Shield is what I do. Yeah, it's very important. Now, to finish this podcast, I want to talk about where where indigos go after they shed their bodies. But not just an indigo. I want to talk about the paths and the afterlife, where we go afterwards. And I want to mention that because I want to make a distinction here that indigos have a different path after they shed their body. An indigo would go straight into pre-matter liquid light, which is the higher levels of higher dimensions, so anywhere from 12 up, normally 13, 14, 15 dimension, density 5. They would go into density 5 level, and in this time matrix, this is the highest level, highest density level. I will go through these different paths. So as I said, the indigo would go straight into pre-matter liquid light, or they might want to stop at different densities and dimensions in between. Okay, so they will, instead of going directly to pre-matter liquid light, they might opt to stop at like dimension 8 or 9 and have a little wander there and explore and experience life at that level, because there's less and less risk for them as they go higher and higher and into a more expanded state. Now, there's other paths that unlikely then an awakened indigo will take, but sometimes an indigo will fall, unfortunately, and they might end up in somewhere called Phantom Earth, which is the path for the draconians who do very bad things to others. Very difficult to evolve them, and their templates fragment, and then they end up in space dust, but that's called the Phantom Earth. So like I said, an indigo path is very different. It's actually the polar opposite to the Phantom Earth, because the indigo will go up and vertically, and can have the option to go horizontally as well, but they go up vertically into the pre-matter light field, whereas Phantom Earth is more the path of those that are doing all the wrong things, like the draconians, the Leviathans, the Anunnaki, and they devolve back into space dust if their template completely fragments. There are two other paths. We have a path of Aramatena and a path of Arimathea. So I'll speak about the negative one first. The path of Arimathea, it's basically path and phantom matrix, but it's a whole collective that will be taken into this path. There is a potential to evolve out of it, but it will take a very, very long time, like we're talking billions of years, before this whole entire race will come out as a collective from Arimathea. Because they are in complete control and subjugation of other more powerful races, that the false creator gods of the especially the Anunnaki. This is where you find the Ruby Order people who actually defect from the Emerald Covenant. They're supposed to work with the Emerald Covenant, the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order, but they defect. Like example is Thoth, the false Egyptian god who was entrusted with the Emerald Order teachings, but once he received the teachings, he defected. So they fall into the Phantom Matrix. They stay in the Phantom Matrix for a very long time, but eventually they actually go back to space dust as well, or they might evolve out of it after billions of years of evolution. So basically, it's the path of the collective that are very domineering, very controlling, very aggressive about it. They're very, very aggressive and have a lot of, false sense of self and grandiosity. And it's a whole race like that too. They're the fallen order. They will go into the Phantom Matrix. Okay, and then we have the positive path of Arimathea, and that's the 12D Christos path, the path of the divine D12. D means dimension, so dimension 12 frequency, blueprint of this energetic matrix. Anyone who's seeking to go back and merge back with eternal creator is on this path, the path of Arimathea. Now, what about the people in between who just don't know what's going on, but they're not necessarily on the path of destruction and devolution? They're on that bridge between the Middle Earth, the in-between Middle Earth bridge zone, it's called. So people who partially activate the Merkaba are able to activate 4.5 strands, not quite enough to go through a Stargate, but they don't go through to the dark, the Phantom Earth, or the other one, Path of Arimathea. They can go into Middle Earth for another 2,000 years in future time and wait until they're ready and they're fully activated to take their next ascension cycle into Tara, which is density 2 planet. So equivalent to Earth, but a more etheric form of Earth and more ascended. So it's a level 2 density, not a level 1. And each person's free will be honored fully. Whatever your choice may be, it'll be honored. And there's no such thing as like Judgment Day, because judgment works in different to the energetic system that runs our time matrix, our energy matrix here. We have complete free will to choose the path individually that suits us. We're given choices, we're given many choices. This is a path of complete free will that honors free will and honors the person's individual choices. I hope this podcast has in some way been enlightening, helpful to your journey, and I hope that you've learned a little bit more about your templating and someone else that you know who might possibly be an indigo. So please share this information freely, and if you have any questions, please mention it in the comments below. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Much love.